What's going on YouTube? So the last time I was at the track, this guy got a bit of a vibration. This is my 1987 M3, and so I took it into the pits and poked around a little bit, and I noticed that the strut bolt to come loose. I got another strut over here, I'll show you. So these four bolts right here, they hold down this little guy that connects to your control arm and your tie rod. So I think it was this bolt right here was loose, and when I tightened it down, the bolt stripped. So I decided instead of playing the Mickey Mouse game of Loctite and this and that, I'll just safety wire. So here's the safety wire I got. It's Harbor Freight, and I paid I think $7 or $8 for it, and it's a ton of it. I'm not an aircraft mechanic. This isn't going on in the air, so this stuff is just fine. These are safety wire pliers. I personally don't use them. I just use my hands. A lot of people love them, and they make a really nice twist, but when you're only doing like 2 or 3 inches, you can do it just as quickly without getting these things out. So I'll probably even return these. I got them thinking I might use them, but it's still in the box. I also bought this drill press vise at Harbor Freight, which really helped get the bolt nice and anchored like that. I just got normal bolts. These are, I don't know, 10.9 grade metric, and I got a 1/16 drill bit right there. I would recommend the cobalt. I got some titanium ones too, and those got pretty dull and then snapped after like a bolt. So the cobalt ones lasted like 4 or 5 bolts, and I switched it out when it was getting really noisy and pretty pissed off. So once you drill the holes, you got the one over here you can see. Yeah. You could probably pay $10 for these aircraft spruce, or just drill the hole yourself. So getting out your safety wire is pretty easy. You just grab it, pull a bit out that you need, cut it off, and then wrap it back. You'll see the wire is pretty twisted up like this, which is going to suck for your safety wire. So what I do is I just grab it with my pliers and then straighten the wire out. So now the wire is nice and straight, and it'll be a lot easier to maneuver. Alright, so you can see we're under the car now, and what I showed you on the workbench, the strut, this is the one that's actually on my car, and these are the bolts that loosened up while I was at the track. And you can see I've already done one, so we're just going to do this guy over here. Now the purpose of safety wire is to prevent the bolt from loosening. So as you can see how this wraps around the back, if this bolt tries to loosen up, this wire will get tighter, and it'll prevent the bolt from loosening more than maybe 1/8 of a turn or so. So on these guys, we have the 2 bolts that are pretty even actually. We need to make sure that this one will not loosen and this one will not loosen. So if we do the wire twisting from here to here, it'll work okay for this guy, because if he turns left, the wire will get tighter. But this one, if we turn it left, the safety wire will just bunch up in the middle, and it'll be allowed to turn probably a 1/4 turn or so, which isn't good. So we're actually going to have to twist our wire from here to here, and that will prevent this guy from opening left, because it's a normal bolt, and then the angle here will prevent this bolt from turning left. I hope that makes sense. So a few tools that you need for doing safety wire is a screwdriver to help kind of get everything tight. You need a pair of dikes to cut the safety wire, and then a pair of needle nose pliers to kind of manipulate the wires to get it nice and tight in the bolt holes. And of course safety glasses. You're going to have wire real close to your head, and it'll poke you in the eyeball, and that'll cause a bad day pretty quick. So we're just going to run the safety wire through this guy first, and I used about half the wire on either side. When you do safety wiring a lot, like if you're an A&P, you'll probably use a lot less wire than I am, and they're probably laughing at me right now. But I haven't done this in like 10 years. so I'm a bit rusty. So you just feed the wire through, and we'll get about half. Let's see. There we go. There's half. So now what we want to do is this wire is going to turn right. This wire is going to go around the outside of the bolt and come underneath this side of the wire. And we want to make this nice and tight because it looks good and it prevents the wire from fatiguing. So you turn the wire like that and then pull it really tight. If you want to get really creative, you can grab your needle nose and then pull it nice and tight. So you can see it's still a bit loose. So we'll actually get the screwdriver now and kind of crease the wire so that it's really up against the bolt head. The tighter the better. And as you can see, this is a pretty tight confined space. If I got my safety wire pliers out right now, it wouldn't do anything because it's too tight. So now we're ready to start the twist. You want a nice uniform twist. You don't want one wire twisting around a straight wire. You want both wires to twist evenly. The best way I found to do this is to make them about as opposite as possible and then rotate both hands at the same time. So you go like this. Sorry if that's a bit hard to see, I'm blocking the camera. About 13, 14 years ago, I went to school to be an airplane mechanic, and we had to do a lot of safety wiring. If I was an A&P now, I probably would have this done already. But one of the things the teacher was a stickler about is having a uniform twist, and you weren't allowed to like take your needle nose and come in here and manipulate the wire. Any of these dings or nicks would be a failure. So this isn't an airplane, so I'll probably do it a little bit to kind of make everything look nice. Sorry, Mr. Takis, if you're watching this. So when we get a bit of a distance, we need to see how much wire we have left to get to this hole. And it looks like we'll probably need 1 or 2 more twists. It's the measure twice, cut once idea here. You don't want to have too much wire, because when you unbend it, it's causes kinks, which that's no good. So that's about the right distance. And so now we're going to straighten this wire, and I want this wrap around the bolt to lay flat. So I'm going to hold it tight and then bend my wire. So we're going to do the same thing as we did on this bolt. On this bolt, one wire is going to go through the bolt head, one wire is going to wrap around the outside. Then we're going to do a little bit more twist, bend it to make a nice little bunny ear, and cut the wire and put it in here so you got no snags. And I'll show you as we go along. This would be a lot easier if I had a lift, because then I could not be laying on the floor in power steering fluid. Alright, so once you get a little bit of the wire heading out, sticking out the bolt hole, just grab it with your pliers and pull. You probably have to readjust your grip a few times. And as you're feeding it through, you want to make sure that you're not getting any kinks in the wire, because it will make it difficult to pull it all the way through. So we're almost to the end here. You can see there's a little bit of a gap, and we want to eliminate that. So a nice way to do that is to take your needle nose pliers, wrap it. This kind of locks the wire onto the pliers so you're not using your grip on your hand, and then just pull it nice and tight so that it's pulls up in here tight. Now this is really nice. I bet you if I tried I could play it like a piano. Now that this guy's done, we're going to put a little bit of a kink on it so that the wire is held tight through the bolt hole. We got to worry about this guy now. He's going to go around the outside of the bolt and come back underneath the safety wire that's sticking through the bolt. And again, like the first bolt, we want to get this nice and tight. It'll help tighten the safety wire. We might even get the screwdriver out and kind of manipulate it a little bit. And you can see as I'm pulling on this one, it's tightening the safety wire even more. The tighter the better with this stuff. So I'm going to get my screwdriver out and kind of mash down this side so that it kind of follows the angles on the bolt. Alright, so now we just need to twist the wires and start another weave. Is that the right term? Weave? This is always way easier when you're on a bench and there's not a whole bunch of crap all around to get in your way. So I'm going to bend this down because it'll make it a little bit easier to twist. Can't emphasize enough how important safety glasses are on this. I was in the Air Force, I still am, but I spent 6 years as an ammo troop, and they were pretty big Nancy's about safety. And some of the stuff you're like, yeah, whatever. But this will really hurt you quickly if you're not wearing safety glasses. So we got, like, I'd say 1.5 inches here, which is plenty. So we only need to keep about 1 inch. If you want to fix, like right here, I don't have a very good twist. If you wanted to fix that, you might want to put a set of the needle nose on here and twist it a little bit more. But that runs the risk of over twisting this really nice formation I have here. So I'm just going to leave it. It's not an airplane. It should be fine. This is already overkill for these because they've been Loctited and torqued and now safety wired. So you just cut about 1 inch. So there's about 1 inch left. And then we want to get our needle nose pliers and make a bunny ear. You go a little bit more than halfway and just roll the needle nose and the reason you do this is if this was just sticking out with the recently cut ends on, it could snag on your fingers, which is painful, or it wouldn't rub on the tire, but you know, it could rub on something that could be important. If I had my ducting here for my brake ducts, it could rub on that or something. So it's very important to you want to cut these off and then twist the bunny ear in so that the ends with the sharp little sharp ends are nice and tucked away so they won't snag on anything. So maybe give it a little bit of a twist. And that's about it. So now let me grab the phone here. Let's see. There we are. So there's the finished product. It's coming out the left here, so if this guy tries to loosen up, it's only going to tighten this safety wire. And again, if this guy tries to loosen up, it's only going to tighten the safety wire. So they both work against each other, which is exactly what we want. And this is nice and rolled over, so we're not going to have any shrapnel wounds, if you will. And yeah, that's about it. Hopefully next time on the track I won't have any problems like this, because it was a big bummer to spend half my day fiddle-faddling with this instead of driving around a racetrack. Hope it was helpful, and have a good day.